All right, everyone, welcome back to the Self Leadership Lab. If your calendar is full, but your life feels out of control, it's time to address that. Well, you're in luck because today I've got an expert on calendars, burnout, and finding ways to make yourself more productive and not just more scheduled. So I'm pleased to welcome Erin Treacy onto the show. So, Erin, why don't you give us a quick overview of yourself and then what you do around this calendar planning, and then we'll just get into the conversation and see where it takes us.
Okay. My name's Erin Treacy. I'm a people first leadership and business coach. And I work with a lot of, especially women, but all people who are trying to balance those leadership roles, whether new leadership, long-term leadership, small business ownership is a leadership skill all its own that's separate from just normal corporate leadership. And we're balancing life. We want to live a life. We want to show up for our kids. We want to show up for our spouses. We want to show up for the people that we lead in our teams. And then we also want to show up as ourselves so that leaders see us in our organizations. And it can get tricky. It can get hard, and we have all these mixed messages about where we should be and what we should be and how we should be. And so really helping folks talk about those real life steps that we can take that actually have some impact. It's great to put up a vision board, and that's wonderful to where I want to be someday. But if we don't start talking about the first step to get there, then that's really never going to come. So that's where I come in. We're going to start at those steps, not necessarily the vision board that will big vision. We're going to do the steps to get there.
Yeah. And to accomplish those steps, obviously, you got to schedule things, right? And you got to put a plan in place and go for it. Why do you think so many of us, myself included, as we talked to you before we even hit go on this, why do we put so many things on our calendar? For me, I can tell you, it's a lot of times it's just like a mindless thing. It's like, oh, something comes up, I just click it, and then like you said, we both said, well, we have several things today, and where did those come from, and all that stuff. So walk me through like what you observe with normal people, and then why calendars become almost instead of a tool, they almost become an obstacle in what we're do and achieving the vision that we're going after.
We're so told to balance your schedule, write it down, put it on something, but a full schedule somehow equals we're doing all of the right things. See my checklist, see how full my calendar is, and it's like a badge of honor of how full can I get it. And that's part of the problem. It's that because the schedule is full, that must mean I'm important. That must mean I'm busy. That must mean other people need me. And so we do these things and we trick ourselves into what that full schedule looks like and why we need it. And then we're also taught, manage your calendar, block off 15 minutes, block off an hour. And so we're taught that it has to be full. And that's what productive is. The problem with the full calendar is we're in motion. We're doing something. The body is physically moving, but 9 times out of 10, the majority of that calendar is not actually getting you to that vision board that you laid out. They're actually roadblocks and potholes and high walls and, whatever those different things are coming at you, they become the obstacles to get to where you want to be, not a clear path.
Mm. A lot of coaches and a lot of leadership experts will say that, show me what your vision is and then show me your calendar, and then that'll show me what your vision really is. So why do you think that so many of us, myself included at times, our calendar doesn't reflect what we want to do? And, you're saying it, vision board, I'm going to say the end state, whatever we're working to. Why do you think that is?
Well, and it's that almost keeping up with the Joneses. We didn't learn what management of time actually looked like. We didn't learn what priority necessary work is. We just, as long as motion is happening, it's urgent. There was actually a recent study that came out that talked about urgency is actually causing issues with our mental health. So we look at that calendar and it seems urgent. It's on the calendar. But a lot of what's on your calendar isn't urgent. We wear smartwatches. Like I stopped years ago through the burnout of my own life and trying to figure out how to do these things. because I didn't know how to do them. So when I talk about them, it's I lived it. I don't just preach it to others. It's like, no, I had to figure these things out. But one of the biggest reasons I stopped wearing a smartwatch and really a watch at all is it got in the way. We can't have this conversation. And let's say you are my boss or vice versa, and I'm trying to have a leadership conversation with a team member, but my watch keeps going off telling me about my Facebook notification and my Instagram notification and a text from the kids, all of which aren't things that I need to do right now, but it's given us false urgency of I have to right now. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you. And so we're out of conversations. We leave important conversations that get us where we want to be, that do follow that vision to get me from here to there, or the business from here to there, or our family from here to there. They're getting in our way. And so we have to cut this meeting off to get to the next meeting. We have to cut that meeting off to get to the next meeting. And so we're constantly cutting ourselves short, and we're running through a day, and there was never time to think through, okay, we're having a great conversation with this employee. I learned something. I heard them talk about a specific subject. Okay, if I know this from this employee or my kid or my spouse or whoever it is I'm talking to, I learned something that then helps me prevent the next problem. Instead of having huge fires to put out on a constant, we now have tiny road bumps. We can solve problems because we have time to think. We have time to walk through it. We have time to have the conversation with an actual person or an actual team or the actual family. Instead of just putting out fires all day, we're getting productive work done. So it's that smartwatch is the worst thing for that urgent. And the calendar is very connected to that because it's going to start giving you that 10-minute alert to whatever meeting. I'm still in this meeting. This meeting's actually going really well. I need to stay here to really be present and have the conversations that I need to have to be productive.
Yeah. I'm smiling a lot when you talk about the getting rid of your smartwatch, because I found that same thing in my life, but from a different perspective. But I like to chase rabbits, so let's chase this one. I think that a smartwatch also, and everything that you said, I agree with. I mean, like I said, it reminds you of things that you don't need to be reminded of. It reminds you of, it puts pressure on you, urgency, whatever. But also it gives you metrics that aren't important to you, and a lot of times in the coaching arena, everyone says what you can't measure, you can't track, and all these things. But I want to rail against that a little bit and say that only matters if you're tracking the right things. And I had an Apple Watch for a long time, and it has those little ring things, right? And at the end of a day, it may say, oh, you didn't get your steps in, or you're not moving like you normally moved. Well, maybe yesterday I did 20 miles, or, I slept terrible last night and I'm trying to take an active day. But then you start feeling guilty about those metrics. But then also I can imagine if your calendar was coming in and all these other things were coming in. So share a little bit more in spare no detail about railing against smartwatches and how they're kind of, changing our mental state and also our productivity. I think they're anti-productive.
I think they are 1,000% anti-productive. And, when I first went to work and started into some leadership roles and started, learning leadership, especially as you moved up the food chain of leadership, it was don't answer the phone when you're having a meeting with folks. You separated those things. Then we got smartphones, and it was put your smartphone in a drawer while you're having a meeting with your team or with your employees so that there's not disruption. The smartwatch now goes with us wherever we go. And I watch people when I'm in an organization and it's, we want you to come in and this, and I start to watch people and I see how many smartwatches, and you see how many times it pulls them out of a meeting. That's a key meeting. You may be a law firm and you're going to trial on Monday, and instead of listening to all of the prep work that's getting done, we're like, okay. And, we're now writing the note back, or now we're grabbing our phone to go into detail, and it pulls us out of what's important now. And we need to remember what winning actually is. And a win is what's important now. And that's where we need to be. If I've placed myself in this room for this meeting to win in this meeting, and I'm competitive, so I need wins. That's why I love win. I'm a highly competitive person. And if winning is being present in this meeting to fully understand a client, a situation, whatever my work is doing, then I need to be important now in what it is happening. And you're so right about we're measuring so many of the wrong things in life, in leadership, in business. We watch all of our KPIs and our ROIs, and we've got these dashboards that tell us, and a schedule, that calendar is a dashboard that's giving us false information. It is lying to us because we can go, look how busy I was. 47 meetings, so busy. So we have that false sense of important. Again, it's the wrong metric. And there's a really good quote that comes from Nick Saban, and he talks about this. And if Nick Saban can talk about leadership and how to win, then, one, I'm a West Virginian, so I'm going to quote West Virginians anytime I possibly can. But he's also like one of the greatest coaches in football. I mean, multiple national championships, multiple schools. And when he talks about what we're measuring, he's like, people focus on the scoreboard. Who's winning? What's the number say? How many downs do we have? How many runs do we have? And all of those numbers are up there. But when we're at practice, we're not talking about scoreboards. When we're in a game, we're not talking about scoreboards. We're talking about each and in every play as we do them. We are not looking at 50 yards down the field. We're not looking at 4 steps from now. We're looking at this play and perfecting this play, because this play put together with the next play, and then the next play is how we get to the end zone, which then is what changes the scoreboard. So if you think about that, we need to be in each play of our business, of our parenting, of our leadership, wherever those focuses are for us. That's where the change of the scoreboard happens. If that's all we're focused on, you might win, you might not win. That's a toss up. It just depends. But if the University of Alabama and a Nick Saban Alabama team is taking on a tiny community college of, Paducah, then yeah, the scoreboard's going to look absolutely amazing, because tiny community college of Paducah isn't going to have the same kind of lineup as Alabama and Nick Saban. So the scoreboard's lying to us, just like the calendar is lying to us. It's telling us we're productive when there's not a lot of productive. There's putting out fires, there's emergencies, but there's no real movement in what we're doing. And that's why we feel stuck. We feel the burning of energy. They ran up and down the field 100 times, right? They ran drills, but they never passed the ball or ran a play. Therefore, the scoreboard didn't change. And so those are things we have to think about.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there. And you taught me two things that probably aren't relevant, but one of them is the acronym WIN, what's important now. I've never heard that before. And that is really, really, really fantastic. And that goes to whole presence and kind of how you schedule your time and your being, whatever you're doing. And also, I didn't know Nick Saban was from West Virginia. All these years I've seen
West Virginia.
Yeah. What town is he from?
He was born up in Marion County. It's a tiny little town. I can't the name, but he will claim Marion County as a whole. It's actually the pipeline of college football. Lou Holtz was from there. There's a whole litany. Jimbo Fisher is from there. There's a whole litany of coaches. It's called the pipeline to football coaching, and it all starts in West Virginia.
Wow. I never knew that. And my parents will like that because they now live in Alabama. So they, that whole, but my nephews go to Auburn. So every time I talk to them, I always say roll tide just to see what they do. But no, that's very interesting off topic, but thanks for enlightening me there. I didn't realize West Virginia was such a wealth of football greats right there, but cool. Yeah, you talked a lot too about the dashboard and how a calendar becomes a dashboard and measuring, things that don't matter. What What do you counsel people and coach people on to start developing a calendar? Because I mean, obviously things are going to happen, right? A lot of people work in a 9 to 5. They don't have control of the time. So I'm assuming that we control the time that we can, very stoic, right? Control what you can, forget about what you can't. But for the time that we can control, for this for the audience's perspective here, what are some tips that you'd give them to that they can start, integrating and stop looking at it as a dashboard and looking at it more as a tool or a an avenue for success?
So I like to put kind of railroad blockers on each side. If this meeting is your boss mandated this meeting, so this is you have to go. You have no choice in it. Put a buffer on each side of that, so you have 10 minutes before the meeting to get away from the thing that you're doing, or if you're on this, to start that transition into, do I need to be prepared in some way for this meeting? Do I just need to get my stuff together? Honestly, taking a 2-minute walk slowly from your office to the conference room, if that's where it is, being able to kind of slow walk and kind of change your mindset to sit down in the meeting and be present, leave your phone in your office. Also good. And then again, that slow walk, it's not a rush to get out of the room and back to your desk. How you're going to build your connection with the team of people that you work with is by staying in the room an extra 2 minutes. Maybe that's how you're even going to get seen by the boss, is asking a follow-up question after the meeting. And so this is what I heard you say, Mr. or Mrs. Boss person, about this meeting. I think this is where I could dive in, right? And now we're showing up and showing we're thinking through what we're being told or what's being asked of us. And it also lets us take that back to our teams. So it's not a rush on either side, putting a few minute buffer to put something down and move into, and then the same buffer to move out of, so you can go back into whatever the next thing is. We don't want to be rushing from one to the next. Think about it like on a Zoom calendar, it'll say, don't let someone schedule within 15 minutes of another meeting or within 15 minutes after. We need to do the same things to our personal schedules so that we have those buffers of time to transition our own creative brains to do whatever it is we're going to do. Again, so we're not rushing. We have a moment. So that's one of the ones, if we don't have a ton, we can put those buffers on our calendar. But also think about the meetings. If you're calling a meeting, if you have that control, you're calling, you got to get to wherever you need to go to meet a client, to do whatever. Think about how you need to show up in that meeting. Does the meeting start at 11? I like to tell people I'll be there at 11:10, because I can put it on my calendar at 11, but 11:10 sticks out to whoever you're showing up to, because they're like 11:10, not 11:15, not 11:05, 11:10. And it's on my calendar at 11 with the note, told whoever 11:10. Again, it gives me a buffer of transition. I get a minute to show up a few minutes early, be ready, be prepared, be in the space. It all sticks out to the other end of that. So they're more likely to show up on time, ready to go, because it's something that stuck out. Everybody starts a meeting at 11 or 11:30 or 11:15, 11:45 sometimes. I mean, 11:13 is a great time to start a meeting. Why not? Because it sticks out. It's memorable. And having that control, again, gives us those elements of kind of buffer on either side of the meeting, prepared for the meeting. And then really think about, do we need this meeting? Is this a face-to-face conversation? Is this a follow-up phone call? Is this a check-in email? What is my hope to fill in this meeting? If it doesn't need to be a meeting, or is somebody else on your team, or you're a parent, this parent can take that meeting, I can stay over here doing this at work because you need to be at school for a kids team parent meeting, whatever. Think about, are you the best person to be in the meeting? Is a member of your team perfectly capable of carrying whatever this thing that on our calendar needs to be? And then, does it really need to be half an hour? I can check in. If I make a point and I talk to a lot of my clients, we're going to find 2 hours this week to check in with the team members. with all of our team members, the people above us, the people below us. We're going to show up somehow 2 hours. It's not a 2 hour block. It's a 5-10 minute check-in at various parts of the building with various people. I probably have removed about 10 hours of work by investing 2 hours of connection and training and development for them or for me, and save 10 hours of work by doing that. Because again, we're starting to have conversations that see problems or road bumps or any of those things. So again, we're not having to put out huge fires. We're having conversations on the micro level, really small, tiny check-ins that really give us a basis of those conversations. And finding those minutes in your week will save so much time. 2 hours of training and development can save you 10 hours of work in your week.
Yeah, that's an amazing concept, and it's like so often we'll resist that 2 hours, but like you said, if you can save that 10 hours down the road, and I know you told me this when we met earlier before this podcast, and I was like, wow, that's so good, and something that I've implemented myself, because a lot of times we say, oh, I don't have time to do it, but you don't have time not to do it because you gain so much back. And I like those little tips you got, because a lot of times, like if you put something in your maps, it'll have commute time, or sometimes I think Apple Calendar sometimes even says, do you want to add commute time? And if you put the address in there, it'll put that in there. And I think that's one thing that most people don't do. And then they become very rushed, right? Because they see it's something at 11 o'clock, but they don't realize until maybe the day of, or, day before, that, oh, well, I'm here and I got to get across town and it's rush hour and yada, yada. That kind of preparation. And again, taking that time too, like to drive or like 10 minutes, doesn't mean you're not working, because you can think about it and come in clear. And man, I sit through so many meetings. As a kid, I used to watch TV and I see people go to meetings. I was like, oh, wouldn't that be so cool? But now it's a 48-year-old man. It's like, I hate it. I hate it. If anyone ever gives me the option to cancel a meeting, I always say yes, if we can do this on a 5-minute phone call, if you need to give me anything. 9 times out of 10, they don't. That's another thing, is I find a lot of wasted time that we create for ourselves. Of course, we can't do anything about it, for the organizations we work in, the bosses, whatever. But the way I look at it is that time is blocked off anyways. If I show up for a job and it's 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever the duration is, you kind of got to forget that, and you become efficient with your time outside of that. But what I find so many people is they take that same organizational corporate mentality that we've got in America today, and they apply it to their own lives. Is this something that you're seeing with people? And do you have any tips to break that kind of like just meeting for meeting's sake?
I think it's probably one of the biggest. It's we need to meet, and then you all get together and everybody's like, so what are we meeting about? And nobody seems to know what we're meeting about, right? Because there was no direction at the whatever was before. We wait until we're all in that room together, so where we can, asking questions about, okay, so what do we want to get done in this meeting? If we're going to have a meeting, what do we want to get done? What are our goals of the meeting? And that way, everybody kind of knows what they need to bring into it. Again, you can't necessarily control that when it comes from somebody that's your boss and they say, we're having a meeting. But if you're doing those small check-ins through the week, that's a great way to get in front of the boss and say, I know we have a meeting on Thursday. I was just wondering if there's anything specific you kind of want to go over so I can make sure I'm prepared and bring that information with me. Right now, we're setting goals for the meeting, even if it's not our meeting, in a way that is trying to help us. We may or may not get an answer, but the boss is going to enjoy that, or your leader or whoever is going to enjoy it because you're thinking about it. You want to show up. You want to do well. They hear you're showing up. You want to do well. So maybe not this time, but maybe after you do that a few times, they start to go, you know what? That's the person we need making sure that we run the meeting right. And now you get to start having the meetings and leading that team in those moments because they see you're doing this kind of work, because you're really doing it for yourself. But by doing that, you're showing up in a way that is showing that you're being effective, that you're thinking about best use of time, that you're making sure other people's time is being used too. Because now if we all bring all of the information that we expect to talk about in the meeting, right? We've now fast forwarded that meeting instead of going, okay, now who's going to do what? Da, 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 da. And now we have to have a meeting again to talk about what the meeting really was for, because nobody brought any of the things that, and whatever you needed for the meeting. Now we're divvying out what needs done in the meeting instead of divvying out whatever was needed to show up to the meeting. And so when other people see you value time that way, they start to value you in a way that says they understand how this needs to work and they're being efficient and they appreciate that. So you become that de facto kind of person that is also building yourself up the pipeline of leadership. But we're also teaching all of this to our kids. So I have 5 kids in a blended house. They run from 27 to 20. So we are now out of the ages of, I don't hardly even see their calendars. Every once in a while I'll get, hey, guess what I'm doing this weekend? So, I don't know their calendars, but one of the things that they definitely learned and have taken, and, now that they're older, they can speak to it, which is kind of fun too, to have older adult kids, because you learn things that you're like, man, I wish I could have learned that when my kid was 10, but they can explain it to you, right? So I can look back and go, oh, I wish I had known this, but we're teaching them to run a schedule like crazy, because we're teaching them, you got to be on 5 different teams, and you got to be on the debate club, and you got to be in this, and you got to be in that, and you got to be in this. And so we're running our kids ragged. And I think one of the huge things that my Gen Z kids have learned from their Gen X parents is they don't want to do that, which is why you hear them speaking up and going, my workday is this window to this window. That's what you get. That's all you get, because they learned they needed to set boundaries because they don't want to be run ragged. They've seen Burnout Mom. They learned from it. It's one of those, I don't need to go down that path. I know what's at the other end. I would rather have peace and my friends and my work and so, we get into this work-life balance, and then boomers absolutely go nuts when they hear work-life balance. And millennials kind of fight against it a little more. Gen Z, I think, is a little bit more flexible in it, as if you talk about them as, a whole. That's not always the case, but millennials are hardline. This is the end of the day. This is all you get. And that's wise, because they've learned from their burnt out parents running them ragged. They're exhausted and they don't want to do it.
Yeah, what I'm taking away from all this is we all say, or I hear a lot of people say it all the time, I wish I had more time, or I don't have time to do something, but we're not doing a good job of protecting the time that we've got. And I hate that saying that we all have the same 24 hours, because that's not true. You said you have 5 kids. I have 0 kids. Obviously, I probably have more time to control than you do. But the point is if I waste that extra time, it's of no value to me. And, like I said, that work-life balance, I like work-life harmony, because you got to have some more harmony, because you're never going to balance it. I mean, when you spend more time at work than you do anything else during a given week, there's really no balance there. It just doesn't make sense. When you take sleeping out, regardless of how much or how little you sleep, right? It's still imbalance. But, yeah, so that protecting of our own time, and I want to kind of shift back to the whole vision board, because I don't do them, I'll admit it first and foremost, but I also I've seen a bunch of them. I've never seen one that talks about like time management or that kind of thing. It's always this end state. And again, in leadership, I think that looking at expectations, looking at the end state is always is dangerous, because one, it rarely meets up to it. Oftentimes it even surpasses it and you don't know it. And again, you can't be happy in the now. But as far as your time goes, do you have any tips on kind of, everyone says break them into small measurable. You've heard of SMART goals. I mean, everyone has, right? The measurable part, do you have any tips on that can maybe help people manage their calendars time a little better?
I think when we're starting to break it down that way, and we talk about that work-life balance, and we talk about we're busy in it and we're trying to find those spaces. One of the breakdowns I like to use is very much kind of separating it. Did you feel connected to a person today? Were you able to show up for your kid in a real way? Not you were cooking dinner and you're on your phone and you're still trying to whatever. That's not, did you, even if it's, again, it doesn't have to be 5 hours. You can connect with your kid, with a coworker, with a friend in a few minutes. And sometimes that's all the day allows. And other days, some days I need to work 10 hours and I need to be the priority of putting it at work. And my kids need to know that they are a priority, but today's priority isn't that. Right. And it's good for them to learn that they aren't the first and foremost, just like it's good for the people at work to learn they aren't always the first and foremost. There's an ebb and a flow. Every single day isn't going to be rainbows and sunshine, but it's how we show up in those days. And if we start making those kind of our measurable goals, I'm going to make sure I show up for my kids at least once today. And I don't mean you picked them up in the carpool line. And I don't mean we're going to ask the question, how was your day? Because no kid's ever going to answer that question, honestly. Like, if when your parents asked you, you'd kind of be like, we're not going to talk about it. So it's, how do we show up in those, even if we only get 2 minutes today? It's, I'm putting the phone down and walking away from the phone, from the email, from the whatever, to be with somebody on my team for 2 minutes. If that's all I can do today is 2 minutes with a team member, with a family member, whoever that is, it's balancing those things and being able, and I think about it, especially with my kids, I always thought about, how do I model what they want to do in life, or how they show up. And it's putting the phone down and talking to them, understanding mom really wishes that she could be, the homeroom mom and do the party and all this stuff. But that's just not possible with the type of work that I do. It doesn't make you not important. I'll show up in the days and the moments that I can. And then other days you need to show up and do your thing and live your life because you're your own person. And doing those things are helpful, and finding those minutes where you can. And sometimes to get out of that cycle of that calendar, those 2 minutes are about all you can find when you're starting out. If I can put my phone down right here. I really don't need my phone in these 2 minutes today. Yeah. And thinking about those things, I talk about, if I don't have to drive kids to school anymore, so I'm leaving the house because our 22 and 20-year-old college students, I live in a college town, live at home. So even going to the bathroom still gets the tap at the door. Hey, what are you doing in there? So it's not quiet. It's not my own. And whether they're 10 or 20, it doesn't matter. They're still knocking on the door when you're trying to go to the bathroom. But your car is a great space to find 2 minutes for yourself. And those are the 2 minutes that you put the phone down and say, where am I going to show up just as a person, as connected? Where do I want to connect today? And kind of think that through and think that out. So for me, it's usually in the driveway before I pull out of the house to go on my day. For others, if you are a carpool parent still, or driving kids to bus stops, then it may be the parking lot. Once you hit the parking lot, put the car in park, you turn the car off, you don't get out just yet, you don't walk into the office, you sit there for a minute and find those 2 minutes. And those 2 minutes will kind of help balance your day. Look back over that schedule after those 2 minutes. Did things in this calendar serve what I need today? Because maybe I didn't sleep great, so I can't do meetings and back to back and volunteer and the full day of my calendar. I'm allowed to cancel those. I'm allowed to shorten those. I'm allowed to move those because they just aren't going to fit today. Because you just don't know what's going to be thrown at you. We don't know when some crazy pandemic is going to change our world completely. We can have all the best vision boards or plans or how to get from here to there's, whatever you want to call the thing that gets you through, but it's not in your calendar. Mm-hmm. That's not where you're going to find how to make the steps to get where you want to be. It's also not where you're going to find the steps of being happy or finding peace or having joy or being connected to people. Nothing on that calendar is going to make you have like the better day, right? I mean, there's just not. Just like a vision board in the things. The calendar is the things. A vision board are the things, the tangible I can touch. It's the scoreboard. we have to break our day down and find those plays that get us there and focus on those and connecting with people, whether they're customers, coworkers, kids, friends, spouses. Those are the things that we need to be connected to, not the smartwatch and not the phone and not all of those things. They're great. They do a lot of functional things, but we have to change. That shift helps you to shift those priorities in that crazy schedule and go, yeah, this is not a connection thing. This isn't going to build. That's an email. And we start to see those more because we're out of the fog a little bit. Like we're not, think about when you're driving down the road on the interstate in a car and, 70 miles an hour, everything's kind of fuzzy going by. The calendar is the car going 70 miles an hour. We can't see what the scenery is. You can't read some of the signs. They're going by too fast. It's in that pause in the parking lot at the rest stop that you kind of look around and go, oh, this is kind of a nice little road. Isn't this a nice, or the road? Like I love taking backcountry road trips. Give me a dirt road and some gravel. And hopefully I'll come out the other side because we'll probably lose cell phone service somewhere in West Virginia along my dirt road. But that's not a bad thing, right? Those are the things that give you those connections that actually start to help you slow down and see those moments to be able to build back to where you want to go.
Mm. Yeah, those are great tips. And I like that. Just if you got 2 minutes, take 2 minutes because 2 minutes cumulative over a year, 700 something minutes or ish, don't do math in public, right? And on the fly. But I mean, like you said, it does take that. And, if you have 2 minutes today, maybe you'll have 5 minutes tomorrow or 10 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. Yeah, the whole thing about phones today and, it's a tool, but we use it as a distraction. And it's like, if you had a hammer, you wouldn't just always be focusing on the hammer. And so I think looking at it as a tool and there are cool things out there now. I just implemented this thing called Brick. I don't know if you've heard of it. They're not a sponsor of the show. So this is unsolicited promo for them. But actually, I have it sitting here. It's this little square right here. It's like a little QR thing. You bleep it up to your phone and it disables it. It makes your phone a brick. And so you can set it up which apps you allow, which apps you don't allow. So now during the workday, the only thing that comes through is a phone call. And in today's society, and especially when you're dealing with younger generations than ours, it's very difficult to say, if you want to get in touch with me, call me, because it's the only way, because I'm not going to see your text until like 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. And probably I'm not going to respond to it. I mean, I'm terrible about but the joke in my neighborhood is if you don't want me to know something, text it to me, because I don't read it. But that's not a way to live either, right? But that connection of a phone call. I mean, so we've got all these tools. And then another thing I would even add to what you said is, at the end of the day, if you're going to use your calendar as a dashboard, until you break that habit and you break that cycle, which it will take time, like, anything, look at it and observe what happens. Like, how did I feel in this moment? Like, what could I have done differently tomorrow? And maybe tomorrow is 2 weeks from now, right? Because we all schedule way out, especially in this podcasting world. I mean, so, I've got podcasts scheduled all the way through May, June. I don't know what's going to happen those days, but now that I know they're on the schedule, then I can schedule around them and observe what I do and make negotiations. Because, if you give someone enough notice and you say, hey, listen, if I called you last week and said, Erin, I really can't do this time, I'm sure we could have found another time that worked for both of us.
Absolutely.
But most of us just stress about it, right? I mean, I'm speaking for me here. I just stress about it. And then when the time comes, I'm either not present or I'm rushed. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
Or we're too busy and our brain's on the other thing. And that's the thing. We don't want, it's like, well, I don't want to disappoint him. We had the meeting scheduled. I'm going to be far more upset. It's like the example, you've seen 80s and 90s family TV sitcoms. And they're like, I would much rather you tell me that you have to cancel the meeting than sit through a pointless meeting. Like if there's disappointment or a parenting, if there's disappointment of parenting, I would much rather have the phone call of disappointment than a waste of time. Or, parenting is, I'd much rather have my kid call me and say, I went to a party and I got drunk. I need a ride home. it doesn't mean I'm not going to be upset, because I may be upset if my kid's out drinking all night, but I would much rather have you home safe and in one piece than a phone call or a police officer at my front door. Not that canceling a meeting is anywhere near that extreme, but just trying to give that parent example as well as just, a work example. It's the same, and it's okay. They probably don't want to come to the meeting 9 times out of 10 if it's just, let's just have a meeting, right? They probably don't want to come either. Or maybe we need a 2-minute check-in to have the conversation about, let's change the meeting to next week. Let's figure out, this is what I need from you. This is what we need to talk about. And you bring whatever else needs to, and that way we know what the meeting is. And that's what we don't do enough. We don't pre-conversate in a way that says, that way we show up in the meeting knowing what we need. That way the meeting is productive. Cancel the meeting and be productive.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes back to the golden rule, goes back to my self-leadership. I love the self-leadership theory. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But I think we got to switch that when it comes to time management. Do to yourself what you would like others to do to you, right? These pointless meetings. I had a boss a long time ago, no chairs in the conference room. You went around the room, and when you talked, you had to stand on one leg. And as soon as you dropped to 2 legs, you were done. And his point with that was everything you need to say should be done in a minute, 2 minutes or less, because, you're wasting people's time. And the more we sit in this room or stand in this room, in this case, the less we're doing, right? The less work we're actually getting done. And another thing, this guy was like dogmatic about, if you didn't complete something, tell me and don't show up. Only bring me a full copy of when you're done or you need my help. Other than that, it's okay to say no. And he had standing office hours, much like a professor, which I thought was really cool too as a leader, because, he'd block off 2 hours in his day and just say, hey, if you've got a question, come in at this time. Instead of bringing the whole staff in there, it was very effective and efficient. And unfortunately, not many of us, do that. But, well, Erin, this has been really fascinating. And I know we're kind of at time here. So I want you to have the last word, but also, take time to tell others how they can get in touch with you. Because I know we just scratched the surface of your offerings. You're doing a lot of amazing things across the board, and you have a wide gamut of experience that we didn't get into, everything from broadcasting to franchising to managing restaurants, all these things. So let people know, but you put a bow on it and get us out here but give us some encouragement and also how we can find you in the future.
I'll start with find me in the future. Pretty easy. Everywhere is CoachErinTreacy.com. It's on social media platforms. It's the website. Everything's under Coach Erin Treacy. Treacy is spelled Irish Tracy, not English Tracy. So Treacy. That's usually where the confusion comes. And for our nice little bow, that way the bow is I always try to remind people, you are human. Making an effort is the best place to start. And perfection is never possible. So that's not the goal. If today you found 1 minute, but tomorrow you find no minutes, the following day we go back to let's trying to find a minute, 2 minutes. And you are human. But as long as you're trying to make these efforts and having these conversations with yourself, with the people around you, that's you see where you're trying to go. And as long as you keep making those efforts, that's what's the most important part. It's not the vision board at the end of the road. It's not the scoreboard. It's let me find a play. Let me find what works. Let me figure these things out and take the little pieces of nuggets. I call them nuggets. There's always a nugget in the things that we hear and see and do, and take that nugget and apply it to you. You're not going to do it the way I do it, but there's something in there that we can take away and apply. And that's what's the most important.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom and, observations around this. And I hope the listeners enjoyed it as much as I did. For all you listening, keep leading yourself. Lead yourself this week in time. Take a look at it, make the adjustments as needed. But as Erin said, take it one step at a time. Get those nuggets. Don't beat yourself up, because this is a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So thanks, everyone. And I look forward to talking with you all soon. Until then, have a wonderful day.